Hi, and welcome to the Fantasy Football Clown Show. I'm your host, Ed Smith. Today we're going to take a look at a league called Dynasty Dogs. It's a 12-team league, and 1 point PPR, half point for first downs. A little bit about this league. So this league drafted late in 2021 in the summer, and the rookies and the vets were all together. So it was after the rookie draft. Everything was kind of set. It was a late draft, and I think when I started this league, I kind of set out with a game plan of not trying to win. So I try to stagger my wins and win teams a little bit in my build for now, my build for later, and where they are in the process. And thought that, I wanted to build one that was going to not win in 2021, but maybe could really be dominant downstream. So I did that. I was working the board kind of as a villain, so important to know that. And we'll take a look at this team. And so it starts one quarterback, one super flex, two running backs, three receivers, one tight end, two flex for the 10 starters. And then it's got 15 bench spots, three taxis, three IRs. So that's what we kind of have. Now, a couple things. So this team finished in last place. As I said in prior videos, I don't ever try to lose. I try to do as well with the team I have. But this team was built to lose, which is different than trying to lose. So this team, what I say by built to lose is I was drafting players that maybe weren't going to play this year, but I thought I liked their outlook. So I was taking best players, but with the idea of youth and outlook, of not caring if they were going to win this year. So we're going to look at the quarterback, which I think is the most important position, and these are the quarterbacks that I have on the roster, and that's Deshaun Watson, Lamar, Daniel Jones, Mitch, Darnold, Drew Lock, Dalton, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Now, my three taxi squad players were Jones, Fields, and Lance last year. So I did stash all three of those rookies there as because I knew that I kind of had to put three rookies on the taxi squad, so I knew I had to draft them, and I was trying to okay, how can I best use the taxi squad for a team that's not going to win, right? That's what I was, kind of came into the year, and then I had three IR spots, and at this point I kind of had a feel for what they were, so I'm like, how can I best use my IR spots with players that I can win? So when we look at the running backs, I have James Conner. Wasn't sure what he was last year going to a new team. But I took him, and I kind of like him, and that was a good take. But then also have Akers and Jamal Williams, Justin Jackson, Hilliard, Keyshawn Vaughn, DJ Dallas, Deion Jackson, and Jake Funk, and then Kai Sargent. You guys know Funk and Sargent are my guys, and Deion Jackson. So we have those guys, and then at receiver, Myers, Pittman, Zay Jones, Guyton, Quez Watkins, and Eli Moore. And at tight end, with one tight end starting, we have Cole Kmet and then Irv Smith. Again, Irv Smith is way younger than we think of, and then he was hurt at this point, for the whole year last year, knew that, and so he was another IR. So Akers and Irv Smith were guys that I drafted just to put on the IR. Really, I knew they were out for the whole season. They were drafted just to put on the IR, and I used some draft capital on them, figured that they would be key pieces. Now, I didn't realize that, Irv Smith would have a coaching change, so we don't know if they're going to use, the tight end as frequently as they did with the former coaching regime. But, felt like Irv Smith was going to be a 23-year-old player, maybe 24 when he comes back this year, and thought that made some sense. But I have Cole Kmet as a young guy, too, to see if he can come into something. Now, want to look at and so then we'll look at the draft picks that we have. We have the first pick overall because the team was terrible, and we have the fifth pick, which we acquired in a trade. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we talk about the startup draft. That's when I acquired this pick. And then we have pick 13 because we have 201. So in the first 13, we have two top five, and then in the first 13 we have three, and then we have pick 25. So in the first 25 we have four, and then we have pick 37. So if you kind of think about that, it's possible that we're going to pull five top 30 picks. So from my 30-person draft list, I might get 5 and get to add that. And I think at minimum, looking at that quarterback room, what we have is driven a frenzy to the quarterbacks. While where yes, I lost, what I was doing was trying to ensure that that number 13 pick will be a skill position because people will. I'm going to gather. I would be shocked if there's not 5 quarterbacks gone off the board with the first 13 pick, with the first 12 picks. I think we'll be at least 5 and maybe 6 quarterbacks in at that point, which means that pick 13 could conceivably be maybe the fourth running back or the fourth receiver off the board. Like that's we're gonna have a shot at the fourth receiver, fourth running back in all likelihood off the board in this rookie class with that 13th pick, and so that's pretty dynamic actually. Looking at this class, so that's kind of what I feel like I did was I jammed that up there, and looking at Eli Moore, I feel like he's a real good piece, and I don't know, maybe even Michael Pittman's a reasonable piece, to build around for the future. I mean, yeah, Myers and Zay Jones and Guyton and Watkins are just guys, and that's fine. And I think the running back room, we need to start 2. I think Akers is a real significant piece, and so I feel like I'm only one real significant piece running back away from having the starters. Now, guys get hurt, guys need to fill in. I mean, Connor's definitely flex worthy at this point, and we'll keep adding to it. But I really think that this team can go from the first position to the to the 12th position, the last place. It can actually be a playoff team this year, like 1 year, with the way that this quarterback draft I would expect is going to go. Now, could be surprised. They could not take quarterbacks, and I could be stuck at 13 taking a starting quarterback, but that's not bad either. So then that just adds to the quarterback room. It allows me to put another quarterback in the flex and have another starting quarterback, which then just kind of prolongs the inevitable that next year somebody's going to have to do. Now, I do think that these guys do not trade with me because there's only one trade that happened with me in the course of this, and that was I traded away pick 410 in the startup, and I acquired the 7-5 plus this year's first, which happened to be pick number 5 overall. So that's where that pick came from. He took Ryan Tannehill with the 410, and he traded me the 7-5, which I turned into Sam Darnold, which looks like a 0 now. But, whatever. It is what it is. I still got 105 out of the deal, so I'm going to get something at the 105. I don't know if that's, a great running back, a great receiver, or one of the quarterbacks. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what that is. But it's going to either be a starting quarterback in the NFL, like a day one starter, to add to that room, or it's going to be, something to keep driving the value, or it's going to be a running back that I can pair with Akers and feel real good about, or it's going to be a top end receiver that now I have 3, that I have Pittman, Eli Moore, and my third receiver. Like that's just done. Like it feels like it would be done, with that pick. So I feel like really good about that at that spot, and we're probably gonna drive the number 1 pick will probably be either a running back to fill that in as well, and so we could have or it might be a quarterback to just start the frenzy off and make somebody come start getting quarterbacks because of where they land and what they have, and just kind of looking at the quarterbacks of pick number 2, like they do have Hurts and Lawrence, so they don't have to make a move at number 2, but they only have 2. Pick number 3, just to kind of give you an idea, they have Tua, Burrow, and Davis Mills, so it's highly unlikely they may take a skill position player. And then pick number 4 has Russ Wilson, Carr, but only 2 quarterbacks as well. So that kind of tells you where things are in the quarterback room. But when we get to pick 6, quarterbacks that they have that they're going to try out there are people like Bridgewater, Heineke, Rudolph, Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, Jordan Love, and Sam Ellinger. So they have a lot of quarterbacks. None of them may start. Like they might actually be sitting there with no quarterbacks. Pick 7, is going to have guys like Dak Prescott, but then Huntley, Aaron Rodgers. So they have enough there to start too. Pick 8, Pat Mahomes and Stafford. So they have enough. They have 2. Pick 9 has Jimmy G and Jared Goff. And we think Goff's going to start, but we never know what Detroit will do. And then pick 10, Mayfield and Murray, so, and then Tyrod, we don't know about him. and then pick 11, they have Cousins and Wentz and Herbert, so they have enough there. They actually have three. So we have first team that really has three quarterbacks that are starting is the whole way to pick 11, and you see that came in second place. And then we have a team that has Brady, that's a done, Winston and Ryan. So that's the team that won. And so, picked before me. So I'm kind of assuring that nobody has bye week replacements for their quarterbacks. We'll start with that. So they're definitely putting somebody else in the super flex for 2 weeks of the year, in those bye weeks. And then if an injury happens, there's going to be a mad rush to the waiver wire to get one of those waiver guys. And what I'll do is I'll probably pick up some backups to stash there, as we go. I mean, that's how I'll play this out, and I'll force the issue where they're basically starting taking zeros in that league. And so that's kind of what you can do with these super flex leagues is you can really monopolize the whole quarterback position where you can force, even if you make two teams take zeros every week, that means you only have to beat three other teams, to get to the playoffs. So, that's one way you can utilize your bench when you have 18 bench spots, including the taxis with only 10 starters, and you have 3 IRs, that's 21. So you only start 10 of 31 players that you can hold on your roster. You can monopolize the quarterback position. So that's kind of what I do here. And at the same time, kind of building with guys like Pittman and Eli Moore that are young, and Akers that's young, and then not being too concerned about guys like Watson and Lamar as who my quarterbacks are, and then with guys like Fields and Lance, Mac Jones coming in behind. I mean, I would trade Mac Jones for the right price, or Daniel Jones for the right price, but to give up the monopoly, it needs to be a good price. Like, it needs to be multiple first round picks so that we can replenish and continually can throw that ball down the line, because right now it's going to influence me getting the players that maybe normally you wouldn't be able to get at that number 13 pick, for instance. I'm going to be able to, and at number 5, I'm probably going to be able to get a player that I could get. I'll be shocked maybe if some of those people don't take quarterbacks. Maybe quarterbacks will go to the top 4, and I'll get my chance at the best receiver running back at pick 5. That wouldn't shock me if people, some of those teams later in the draft have to trade up and come get it. They probably won't trade with me, and that's okay. If I force them to give up assets and they finish with a better record, then I'm probably bringing them back to the pack as well, even though, it's maybe some of my league mates that are actually capitalizing on the trade back value. I'm able to ensure that they're not going to get a whole lot better, and yet, the people trading back and the people trading up are going to give away the assets that it will kind of ensure that they don't get a whole lot better. So, if they don't win right away, then they're gonna sell too much to the future. So that's kind of the balancing act that we play in this league. These guys don't really appreciate my style here, and I think they have a group chat that doesn't include me, which is fine. But I have a lot of fun with it. It's actually a little bit higher stakes league, and so it's kind of fun to maneuver with this sort of draft in this league. And I just want to touch on that before we go. I did say about the trade that I made, but here I had to pick the 3rd pick in the draft, and I did take Lamar over Kyler here. But so Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen went 1 and 2. So I took Lamar number 3. Now I guess if you had to do over again, you'd take Herbert there. But the running ability of Lamar factors in, and so then with a 2-10, I pounded back with Lance. And then with the 3-3, I took Fields, and that was basically just kind of taking in. And these guys, they finally realized that I had 7 quarterbacks, including Mac Jones, when I started. And so Watson was a guy that I put on the IR as well. So I kind of was drafting my IR guys, which is kind of crazy. So I had Watson as an IR guy, and then my first running back I took with the 8th pick was Akers, and he was going to be an IR guy for me. And so I didn't really even take a player that I could play in a position until Pittman in the 9th round, and then Eli Moore in the 10th round, and that I was actually going to put in the lineup. So yeah, I wasn't really trying to win this year, but just kind of, if you notice, there were both young guys that were ascending, and then I took Irv Smith, my 3rd IR player with the 11th pick. So now I've got an IR. I've got all 3 of my IRs, and I felt like I had all 3 of my taxi squad players out of the way. And I had Lamar and Daniel Jones were going to be my starting quarterbacks, kind of thing with with Sam Darnold just kind of being an also ran in a monopoly game, and then I came back and I did go with Connor and Komet, and I figured I'd fill in with Jamal Williams, and he was pretty good for a little bit, and I had to move on from some guys. Like, I had Cam Newton and I had Andy Dalton. I still have Dalton, I guess, but I'm not afraid to cut some of those guys or trade some of those guys for future picks. When they happen. Probably sold Newton a little cheap, there, and or maybe got into a roster crunch with him after he got cut. I don't hold some guys like that too long. If I thought, okay, he's not gonna have a job, I'm not gonna just have a guy just sit there when I can use the bench guy for somebody else. But really was just hammering through, and I'm here. This team, I actually made a bad pick. Colin Powell never amounted to anything, and I was looking here. I had him, and I had Harrison Bryant. Just some guys like that didn't amount to stuff. So it took some swings and misses late in this draft, but the key foundation of the blueprint though worked, and I guess I think that even though it finished in last place, I think it's kind of, I like the outlook of it, and we'll be shocked if it doesn't do a lot better this year, and then by the year 2023, I really think this team is a championship team, even if they refuse to trade with me, kind of thing. Like, it's okay. Like, I think that I'll have such a monopoly looking at the other teams that they won't be able to run it back, and even the guys that have guys like Jonathan Taylor and Joe Burrow, that's a good start. But the problem is Eckler will be kind of gone from the mix by 2023 in all likelihood, and he won't be able to replenish that. And Sermon was a miss, and like he has too many high level misses at the running back position. So and he's going to be two. He's got Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines, so he's just married to a backfield, and starting both of them in your running back spot is going to be bad. And then some other misses possibly are guys like Bateman and Marshall, where he expended a lot of draft capital on them, and then Ryan Fitzpatrick, so kind of forced him into some misses. Now that was the championship team, and I'm just kind of banging on him, and he might be able to run that team back this year, but then he's going to have to be in a full rebuild mode with that 12th pick, and so I think that you'll find that'll be some separation. But then when you start looking at some of the mid-level teams, I mean, there are some good teams that I look ahead and say, hey, if you start with Herbert and Justin Jefferson and Swift and Kittle and Monty, there's some stuff there, and he got Debo late, so he was able to pull some decent stuff. But when you start looking at David Johnson and J.D. McKissick, he's only an injury away from starting guys like that, and he doesn't have a whole lot behind it. Samaje Perine, and Josh Kelly, it just doesn't feel like there's anything there to fall into with one injury, and it just kind of takes him out of the running. And so it'll be forced to make a trade, from some of that depth that they have to try to compete. And I guess we're going to rely on some emotional behaviors, with them to really take the next step. So love to hear your comments. Love for you to like the video and the content, and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and let me know what you think of this team. Let me know if you think this team is going to be finishing last place, or if it maybe makes the step forward. Love to hear your comments, and look forward to talking to you tomorrow on the Fantasy Football Clown Show, breaking down another team.